Hello, this is Brian Resney, President of Resney Wealth Management. I'm bringing an important update about the economy and the investment market so you can better understand what we see in the global landscape. You know, at Resney Wealth Management, we run a very strict strategy off what's called relative strength. Relative strength basically ranks on a proprietary system the strength or the performance over various time frames of all asset categories around the world, not just the stock or bond market. And this is really where the rubber hits the road. Unfortunately, the vast majority of new investors that hire our firm are almost exclusively 90 to 95% in the stock or bond market, typically mutual funds, and mostly in the U.S. And the bottom line is this: they miss out on all the other investment categories and sectors around the world, and they're always in a buy and hold pattern on what I call the failed asset allocation from Wall Street. This is basically Wall Street's idea to basically gather your assets, keep you in stock and bond related investments all the time. Well, that doesn't work in the real world, and I can tell you from not only real-time management at Resney Wealth Management, but also just a tremendous amount of research that we do every day, looking at just the stock or bond market, which again seems to be the big problem for a lot of investors, is that's primarily the only place their money's ever invested. And again, just in the U.S. is another problem because again, you miss out on all the other countries outside the U.S. But we go back and we'll take a look at relative strength over all asset categories, not just the stock market, not just the bond market. But generally speaking right now, Resney Wealth Management, guess what's relatively stronger and has been so most of 2013? Equity-based markets, primarily small and mid-cap in the U.S., but we've started to add back over the last few months emerging market exposure. Bonds and traditional bonds have been one of the weakest areas most of the year, not only in the U.S. but also overseas. What investors, unfortunately, what we're seeing, again, not with clients at Resney Wealth Management, because our strategy is extremely adaptive to changing conditions, and since we don't just look at stock and bond related, we can adapt over any investment sector around the world. But what we're seeing with new potential clients coming in, basically people that are still in the stuck buy and hold pattern, and again overloaded the boat in the bond market, and they're starting to suffer. We've seen literally dozens of investors this year that have come in our offices. Some have hired us, some we haven't actually taken, simply because of their emotional attitude towards money management and risk. But investors who have overloaded the boat in bonds, and I'm seeing 10, 12, 13% losses in some of the bonds that these people have owned. Unfortunately, investors have a false sense of what is conservative and what is risky. The stock market, unfortunately, people think is a risk asset and it always goes down or it always goes up. Unfortunately, investors have the wrong thought about the bond market. Bond investors, for some reason, think bonds only go up and they never go down. Well, unfortunately, if you overloaded the boat in bonds this year, you're seeing obviously some pretty big hammering in the valuation of a lot of the bond sectors if you overloaded bonds in your portfolio. I think too many investors, again, don't understand all the asset categories around the world and often get lulled in by brokerage houses into what I call asset allocation, the failed pie, and it's always buy and hold and set it and forget it. I can tell you from a lot of experience, there are times you don't want to be in traditional bond or bond funds. There's going to be times you're not going to want to be in any equity market or the stock market. With an adaptive strategy, the key is this: your portfolio is free to flow between asset categories, and sometimes that means owning a whole bunch of cash, because cash is actually relatively stronger than other categories. At Resney Wealth Management and our global tactical portfolios, they're free to roam in the various areas based upon our strategy and our buy and sell criteria. Right now, though, as I made a comment earlier, we are more heavily weighted right now across the board in more small and mid cap in the U.S., which just continues to outperform. That may change next month or next quarter, but one of the things that we're seeing again is improvement around the world. I wouldn't be shocked that in the next 3 to 5 years, as the economies around the world get a little bit stronger, that investors realize that maybe we've started a new bull market phase in some of the equity sectors. On a different note, I had a couple potential clients that have interviewed our firm over the last couple weeks. They're with major brokerage houses. In fact, I talked about a story about one of the broker dealers, Edward Jones. Motley Fool wrote a great article about Edward Jones back in 2012. And they weren't just picking on Edward Jones, but they wanted to use them as kind of how the broker-dealer as a whole works. And this, again, is all broker-dealers. So if you're not with a fee-only firm like Resney Wealth Management, you're in the broker-dealer model, whether it's a big firm or a small firm. But at the end of the day, Motley Fool wrote a great article about the conflicts of Wall Street and how these firms really work. They used Edward Jones as the poster child, and rest assured, Edward Jones is not the only one that has had literally dozens or hundreds of fines and censures by the SEC and FINRA. Almost all the broker-dealers across the board do the same exact conflicts against their client. So again, most brokerage firms work under what's called suitability. They're not fee-only, they never can be fee-only, and most do not work under what's called a fiduciary standard of care or in your best interest like Resney Wealth Management. We're going to actually post that article by Motley Fool and about the brokerage industry and about Edward Jones, so all of our clients not only can learn more about why they hired our firm in the first place to get rid of those conflicts and manage your money, but it'll also be a great read for non-clients, and I urge you to read that. We'll be posting that on our blog in the next week or so, and we'll also send out a special email blast about the article so you can read it. I think it's important that investors get a little bit of education. We never expect our clients or our non-clients to maybe understand everything the way that we understand it, but we try to give you information so you can make better informed decisions around your money, and you can avoid conflicts of interest from Wall Street and so-called advisory firms. On a different note, and again, I'm not going to pick on either political party, but that Affordable Care Act, guess what, folks? At Resney Wealth Management, we just got our notice yesterday, and our plan that we have here at Resney Wealth Management is going to be discontinued through Blue Cross and Blue Shield. The president, by the way, rest assured that we can keep our plan if we like it, and we did like our plan. Rest assured our premiums would be going down, not up. Guess what, folks? At Resney Wealth Management, not only is our plan going to change with Blue Cross and Blue Shield, we can't keep the same plan, but for a similar plan that they would put us into is going to cost my firm 80% more in yearly premium. That's an 80%. Now, while I believe 80% is a little ridiculous on the increase, of course, our government officials said there wouldn't be any massive increases. We are almost doubling the cost of our insurance. Unfortunately, I fear that a lot of investors out there that own small businesses or work at big businesses and employees across the board are going to see increased cost on their health care. We're going to talk more about that on my radio show too. Of course, if you're a client of Resney Wealth Management and you have a question about your portfolio, call our office. If you're not a client and you realize the conflicted advice of a Wall Street firm or a commission-based organization is not for you, call our office for a consultation. We'd love to help you. Make sure you have yourself a safe and profitable week. Make sure you listen to my TV show tonight in Southwest Florida and our live radio show on Sunday from 10 to noon Eastern. Have yourself a safe and profitable week.